Hi guys, Yusef here, and welcome to Movie Thoughts, the show where we talk about movies. Today, we're going to be talking about Jurassic Park 3. Released in 2001, Jurassic Park 3 stars Sam Neill, William H. Macy, and Téa Leoni. The story follows Alan Grant as he goes to Isla Sorna with a divorced couple to try and attempt to save their son, who has been stranded on the island for 8 weeks. I will say this, guys, Jurassic Park 3 is honestly my least favorite Jurassic Park movie. I actually liked it less than I do Fallen Kingdom, because at least Fallen Kingdom has some good moments. But Jurassic Park 3 is just very disappointing to me. It's just a very boring movie, which is something I never thought I'd say with a Jurassic Park film. But it was just very boring. It has some really dumb characters, some really just spotty effect work. Like, it just could have been a lot better, and it was just kind of a bleh movie. The movie opens up with a shot of Isla Sorna, which is now restricted after the events in Lost World, where the T-Rex was in San Diego wreaking havoc and causing chaos and all that stuff. And then right off the bat, we get this horrendous CGI shot of this guy just looking through these binoculars, and you just see like a reflection, and it is god-awful CGI, like so bad. And then you have these two characters that are on a parasailing thing and on a boat. And they get hooked onto the parasailing, whatever. They go up. Even worse CGI, because the green screen is super obvious. Like, it's not even keyed properly. There's just some issues there. And then you have the whole thing with the mystery fog. I mean, the boat that goes through this fog, and the characters start shaking on the parasail, and they look down, and all the people on the boat are dead, and you're like, what the fuck happened there? Like, they just went through fog. What could have possibly killed those people? Like, it was just kind of there just to give us a kill. And it was just a really cheap way to start the film, I think. And then after that, though, we move on to Sam Neill, Alan Grant, and he's with Charlie, which at first you think it's maybe like his son or his nephew or something like that. Turns out it's actually Ellie's son. And in the film, in the first Jurassic, it's kind of implied that Alan and Ellie are kind of together. They're kind of a couple. And even in the same way that Alan kind of defends his relationship with Ellie to Malcolm in that first Jurassic film. But this time they just kind of completely retcon that. They throw it away. And now, like, she's married to somebody else, and like that whole relationship was just it's like it didn't matter at all, and it was just a very jarring change, and I just wasn't a huge fan of that. You do meet Ellie's husband, and you only meet him for like 5 seconds or something like that, and he says like a throwaway line about how he works at the State Department, and it is pretty much a throwaway line, but it is a line that actually has something to do with the ending of the movie, and you're like, why make it such a throwaway line if it's gonna matter so much closer to the end of the film? I mean, it was just a dumb decision there by the filmmaker, and it just didn't explain the ending properly. Alright, so then after that we have the scene with Grant making some sort of presentation, trying to get funding for his dig site. And, he's, at this point you can see that he's very cynical about the whole dinosaur thing, at least the whole Jurassic Park thing, because he says they aren't real dinosaurs, they're genetically engineered theme park monsters. And I mean, he does have a valid point, which is something that's actually kind of explained later on in Jurassic World, where they aren't really real dinosaurs at this point, they're just genetic creations that are meant to imitate dinosaurs. So it was nice to kind of see his thoughts on that. It's at this point that you do get introduced to one of the secondary characters, Billy, who's kind of like an assistant to Alan in the film as a paleontologist. And, he's kind of an okay character, just not really a big introduction to him. And then you also get introduced to William H. Macy's character, who is supposed to be like he plays himself off as this whole like entrepreneur, like owner of his whole like company or whatever. And he tries to convince Grant that he wants to like go to the island as a vacation thing to kind of see the sights. And first Grant refuses, but he gets offered, William H. Macy's like, hey, I can give you a whole check here, just tell me how much you want, and I'll give it to you. And at this point, And it's kind of the same thing that happens in the first Jurassic Park, where Grant is just kind of motivated by money. Like, there's no other motivation for him to go to this island other than to gain some money for his dig site. Which, I mean, I understand, because he's a paleontologist, he needs some money to fund his dig sites and everything, but, you know, like, his ideals of never returning to an island with dinosaurs again was completely thrown out the window by the promise of money, and that was just kind of a low blow, I think. It was just, it didn't give the character enough justice, I believe. You also get introduced to these mercenaries who I never cared about. I don't think anybody's supposed to care about them. They're just there to up the body count, and they have nothing. There's no characters there. They're all just these military-style people that they're just there to protect the characters in the film, and they have nothing to their characters at all. They're just, like I said, they're just there to be killed. It's the only reason they're in the movie. And of course, once we get to the plane that's heading to Isla Sorna, you get Billy, who has, you guessed it, a lucky pack. So that's 2 Jurassic films in a row that have lucky packs. Why do we need 2 lucky packs? I have no idea. There was no point to that whatsoever. I don't know. I don't know. And then, of course, on the plane, you also get the infamous raptor scene. This ridiculous, idiotic dream sequence where Alan looks to his left and there's a raptor talking to him that just says Alan. Why? There's no point to it. There's no point to it. There's no reason for it to be there at all. It was completely stupid. You know, the plane lands. That's when you realize that they're looking for somebody on the island, and you know, some stuff happens. One of the dudes gets in trouble with one of the dinosaurs, and they're trying to escape the island now. They're getting back on the plane. They're about to take off when the Spinosaurus just appears out of nowhere, and you know, it all goes to shit. The plane crashes. Spinosaurus shows up again with some awful puppet work. Like, it looked like a theme park creature. It didn't look like, you know, when you compare it to the puppetry that was in Lost World and in the first Jurassic Park, that was so lifelike. You know, it had moving noses, moving eyes. This movie just feels artificial. Like, the puppetry here is just, it's just not up to par at all with anything that was in the previous Jurassic films. And it was just really dumb to watch. It was nothing. It didn't feel like the stakes were high. It didn't feel like a real creature. And you of course do get some CGI shots, and they're okay. They're still not as good as the original and as Lost World. They're decent, but it could have been a lot better. And it's, you know, again, when you compare it to the first 2 Jurassics, it's unacceptable, because it could have been so much better than it really was, especially in 2001. You know, it's been 4 years since the last Lost World. There's been a lot of advancements in using CGI and everything, and it looks worse. Like, I don't understand how that could possibly look worse. I mean, I don't know what to tell you guys, but CGI in that film is just not great. So after you have that whole destruction of the plane via Spinosaurus, you get the big dino fight, which is the T-Rex versus Spinosaurus, the new kid in town. And you know, it's an interesting fight. You've never really seen dinos fight, you know, 2 big dinos fight before. And it was an interesting fight, but it was just short. It's just these 2 dinosaurs bite each other, and then Spinosaurus breaks the T-Rex's neck. And that was the whole fight, which is really boring, honestly. Something that I noticed while I was watching this movie, though, was the set design. You know, it's pretty good set design. Only problem is a lot of the scenes look like they're being shot on the exact same place. There's no discerning features in each of the scenes, because they all look like they were shot in the exact same place. They just moved they just move the camera this way, so you would have a tree in a different spot, but it just all looks the same. And it was just kind of tiring to see what felt like the same set over and over again. Now, another thing that Jurassic Park 3 also struggles with, its characters. These are some of the dumbest and most moronic characters that I've ever seen in a film. You know, at the beginning of the film, when they're yelling for somebody, they're told they don't do that, that's a bad idea. They continue to do it. And they just make really dumb decisions. I mean, you have a point where all these characters get separated, and Billy, the other paleontologist who knows what he's doing, and after they're being told that it's a bad idea to yell out names and yell out for people, he's just yelling out for Alan. Like, didn't we just say that's a bad idea? Why are you continuing to do this? Like, don't make stupid decisions. Enough. You also get to the point where they find the old parachute that was from the parasailing people at the beginning of the film, and they find the old video camera that they were using, and I don't know how this is possible, but they use a flashlight battery to operate the battery on the camera, which is completely impossible. There's no way that it would be working on the same battery. I don't know why that was there. There was no point to it. It was just so funny because it was so stupid. And then you also, you know, you see what happens to the characters, like because it's a kid and his friend or whatever. It's his mom's boyfriend, something like that. And you know, the kid gets free. He's like, "I'll come back for you." But then right immediately after that, you see the corpse of the other guy, and you're like, how the hell did he die? Wasn't the other kid there with him? You know, they could have brought him down, they could have given him like some food or whatever, but he just dies? And according to the movie, it's been 8 weeks, but the dude's already like a skeleton, like he's been there for years, and you're like, this doesn't make any sense. There's no point to this, so what is going on? You know? I don't know what to do. And then, you know, this is where the movie, they go into this, now after that, they go into a compound. Oh, first of all, they take the parachute with them, because you never know, you might need it to use it later. Don't know what you would use a parachute in the jungle for, but they use it. And they come across this abandoned compound, and this time, this is where you get to see the raptors. And this is where the movie was really good for me, because I love the raptors. They're one of my favorite characters in the Jurassic franchise, so just the raptors. And I was really happy to see how smart the raptors were. Like, they were communicating with each other. You know, they were calling each other for help. They were a lot more coordinated. And I was very, very happy to see that in this film. And after that, Grant is just kind of cornered by velociraptors, very similar to the last scene in the first film. And he gets saved by Eric, you know, the kid that was stranded on the island. And they do have a little bit of character development together. They make fun of Ian Malcolm, which I thought was pretty funny. And then they also, you know, they spent a day together in like this truck that Eric had been staying in for some time. And then the day after that or whatever, you know, Eric hears the satellite phone. He's like, "Oh, that's my dad's satellite phone." He goes out, finally reunites with his parents, and then they're like, "Oh, we've never had the satellite phone," and there's a Spinosaurus right next to him, and you're like, how did no one hear a Spinosaurus, and how? What doesn't make any sense? Like, how is it just standing there or something? It's weird, because it's literally, when they turn around, it's just like sitting there like, "I gotcha." And, you know, they run from the Spino, they get under the fence, they go through this fence, and they're like, "Oh, we made it. And the Spino rips through the fence, and that was really cool, because it's just like this giant electrified, well, no longer electrified, but it's like this giant steel fence where the Spino just rips through it. And they run into another building, and they close it with a giant wooden door. And the Spino apparently can't break down a wooden door. Like, these characters just close the door, lock it, and the dinosaur just cannot break through it. Even though he had literally just broken through a steel fence, he can't break through a wooden door. Where's the logic there, you know? That's what this film struggles with the most. It's the lack of consistency and the lack of logic. And it's also at this point in the film where, you know, you're like almost about an hour in, and I'm just bored. There's like nothing really happening. Like, The action doesn't feel as dangerous as it should, you know, compared to the first two films, where there's this palpable sense of tension in each scene, in each action scene. But I just didn't feel that here. It just wasn't there. I didn't feel like there was a lot of tension there. And then this is what leads into the big aviary scene. But before that, there's this whole scene between Billy and Alan, where Alan finds out that Billy stole Velociraptor eggs, and that's why the raptors were after them. And you know, this is where you see that Sam Neill was just kind of phoning it in. Like, he didn't really care too much for this movie. He was just kind of there for the paycheck. Either that, or actually, that's funny, because it's Graham motivated by money, Sam Neill motivated by money. But like, you could tell that he wasn't really feeling it in this film. And you know, it shows. It really shows that he just wasn't into it. He wasn't in this 100%. But then this leads into the Pteranodon aviary scene. And you know, you have some good puppets there. It's a lot of it is CGI, which is, again, it's okay. But you do get a couple of puppets, and the puppets here are a little bit better than what we had on the Spinosaurus. These are much nicer puppets. A lot more detailed, a lot more emotion being shown by the puppets. And I was very happy with those. But then, you know how I said there was going to be a reason for that parachute? This is where Billy base jumps off the aviary and opens his parachute. And he flies a parachute to save Eric, and gets attacked by the Pteranodons. And he's presumed dead after that. Like, after he crashes the parachute and everything, he's presumed dead because the Pteranodons are taking him away. Like, they're like pecking at him while he's underwater, and he gets kind of carried away by the stream. So you're like, oh, Billy's dead. Nothing we can do there. And yeah, that's kind of the end of it. It's not the most exciting scene. And then you also have this weird thing at the end where Téa Leoni walks out and the door stays open, which is supposed to be a hint as to what might happen in the next Jurassic film, but that's something that never came to fruition. So you know, watching the movie retrospectively, it's just a scene that makes no sense because there's just a shot of an open door. You're like, there's no point to this. There is, in the aviary scene, there's one thing that just annoys me to no end, and I don't know if it's just me, but it's when these characters jump into the water to escape from the aviary. The sound of the splashes on the water are just, I don't know what it is. I just don't like what they are. They just sound very compressed, and they sound very muffled. Like, they sound like they're water splashing sounds from like 1945 or something like that. Like, they're just not good at all. Like, it just sounded very cheap. So, you know, after our characters escape the aviary, they go onto this boat that's, they're just gonna lead it. They're gonna take the river. That's gonna lead them to the coast. That's where they're gonna try to get a signal to, you know, get rescued or whatever. And, you know, later on at night, they hear the satellite phone again, and they're like, oh crap, the Spinosaurus is back. But really, the Spinosaurus has vacated the phone, and it's in these giant piles of poop. And, you know, our characters are like, oh, we gotta get the phone. And it was just this unnecessary scene that I think was just to try to elicit some laughter. Because all you have is just these characters digging through shit, literally digging through shit to find a phone. And it was just a really dumb scene. It was, because you also have like this dinosaur that walks out to them, stares at them, smells, and then walks away. Like, it was just a really unnecessary scene. It was just there to get a few laughs if it could. And there was no point to it whatsoever. Now you have the boat scene, which is, I think, one of the best scenes in the film. Because you have the Spinosaurus attacking the boat that these characters are on, and he's making a mess. There's starting to create a fire. You know, they're like in this cage trapped while the dinosaurs are like trying to get at them. He's like dunking them underwater. So it's a very stressful, very tense scene, which I was like, finally, this is what the film needed for like the longest time. And at the same time, you also have Gran using the satellite phone to call Ellie for help. And, you know, they're trying to mix in the tension with this other moment in the film, and all you do is you just have Charlie running around trying to get to his mom, the little kid at the beginning of the film, trying to get to his mom and to Ellie. And he just like stops halfway through to look at Barney the dinosaur like jumping around and whatever, and I'm like, this is so unnecessary, this is so pointless, there's no need for it. And then when they finally get to Ellie, they give her the phone, Ellie just looks scared, and you know, this is where her character annoyed me because Ellie's character was just so underutilized. I mean, she was such a strong female character in the first Jurassic Park, and in here it was just like, oh, she's the one, she stays behind, and all she's there for is just to, you know, to save these characters that are in the island at the last minute. And it was just really a waste of a good character, and I was not happy with that, like, at all. So then you also have this thing, like, again, the stakes don't feel as high as they do in this film. Like, there's a scene where you know, you think that William H. Macy's character has died, but at the same time you're like, he didn't die. He's too important a character to let die. So that's why, you know, you feel like the stakes aren't as high, because there's just no tension, especially because once you get to these characters, you're like, these are the main characters, they're not gonna die. So you don't feel as invested as I feel like you should be invested in this film, and that's one of the more disappointing aspects of it. So then, you know, these characters finally are on their way to the coast. They get stopped by the raptors again, and the raptors are here to get their eggs, and they get their eggs, but then Alan gets like this resonator that they had at the beginning of the film, and apparently he speaks raptor, because he just starts blowing on this thing and trying to like communicate with the raptors, and apparently he seems to know what he's doing because he just happens to speak raptor now, and that definitely came out of nowhere, and it didn't make a lick of sense, like, at all. There was no point to that whatsoever. You know, and then the raptors leave, they grab the eggs and leave. Characters go out to the coast, and you know, a bunch of like military guys come out, like the Navy, the Marines, or whatever it is. They come out and they load the characters up into a helicopter, and somehow they were able to find Billy. How did they find Billy first? If he was being attacked by pteranodons and he was going downstream in the other direction that the characters went into, I'm like, how did they find Billy? And it was just this gaping plot hole where I'm just like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, how? Just how did you get there? I don't know. I mean, this movie made a lot of mistakes and made a lot of dumb mistakes. Guys, this movie made a lot of mistakes. It was very disappointing. I mean, it had these really boring characters, it had these spotty effects, these gaping plot holes, a boring story with like barely any motivation for the characters, and just an overall disappointing film. I give Jurassic Park 3 a C-. Guys, I want to thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications, share with your friends. Remember, if there's anything that you want me to cover on Movie Thoughts, drop it in the comments below. Remember, please like, comment, subscribe. Join the Cyborg Army today.